Welcome to Did You Know number 32. Lana's got a couple things, and I'll have a couple of things, and then we'll get to our question and answer.
Alrighty. 2 Samuel. Oh, let me go back. 2 Samuel, 2 Samuel chapter 12. 2 Samuel chapter 12. Verse 31. 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 31.
And he brought forth the people that were therein, and put them under saws, and under harrows of iron, and under axes of iron, and made them pass through the brick kiln. And thus did he unto all the cities of the children of Ammon. So David and all the people returned into Jerusalem.
I wrote on here, is this what hell is like? And I know it's a lake of fire, but for some reason, I don't know if anybody's ever seen it before. And I don't know who the painter is, artist, whatever you want to call them. But there is a painting or a print, it may be in a museum somewhere, that shows devils. Of course, you know what the painter thought a devil would look like, torturing people. And I thought to myself, what if that is going to happen? I mean, I know the heat is, the fire alone is bad enough. And I thought to myself, what if these things torturing people in hell, not killing them, but just torturing them. And you said something, I forgot what it was.
Well, it's in the lake of fire. The main thing is that they're away from, they can't enjoy the things of God, the love of God, the joy of God, God's glory coming through them. That doesn't take place in hell. And they are tormented day and night by the fire, and they are an abhorring to all flesh. So there's a lot of shame and just not being useful. That's the main torture. But, it's interesting. You don't know. The Bible doesn't say exactly what happens. Maybe the devils do. The hell was prepared for the devil and his angels. Maybe the devils do torment the people somehow through laborious work like that. I don't know.
2 Samuel chapter 15. 2 Samuel chapter 15. Verse 3.
And Absalom said unto him, See, thy matters are good and right, but there is no man deputed of the king to hear thee.
And I wrote on there, deputed. Deputized was way back then. So,
Barney Fife wasn't the first deputy.
Yeah, Barney Fife was not the first deputy. He was not the first deputized.
Alright, so now we've got two from me. I have at 2 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 15. Second Chronicles 1:15. And the king made silver and gold at Jerusalem as plenteous as stones, and cedar trees made he as the sycamore trees that are in the vale for abundance. This is King Solomon. Did you know that silver and gold was so plentiful in his kingdom? It was such a prosperous kingdom that it was just like common stones. Today, I know gold, I think, is about $1,300, $1,400 an ounce. I don't know what silver is, but it's very valuable. They're considered precious stones. But in the kingdom, it's just like regular stones in Solomon's kingdom. Did you know that's how wealthy his kingdom was? Then the second thing I have is 2 Chronicles 7, verse 14. This is if you look at churchianity, if they've got one verse in 2 Chronicles memorized, or if they know one verse in 2 Chronicles, period. Most people don't even know what's there. They know this one. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. This is used by pastors to say, oh, we got to get America back to God. We got to start praying. We got to turn our government over back to God. And if we do that and we repent, then God will forgive us, and then we'll be one nation under God again instead of being under rebellion. Well, did you know the context of this was God making Israel his people? God set Israel to be above all nations. He didn't set the United States to be above all nations. And this promise in 2 Chronicles 7:14 is in relation to God willing to heal Israel. You notice from verse 13. They'll read verse 14 all day long. No one ever reads verse 13. If I shut up heaven that there be no rain, or if I command the locust to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people. Verse 14 is mid-sentence. The sentence starts in verse 13. Since we haven't had locusts to devour the land, then we're not really in this situation. If you go back to chapter 6, verse 28, it says, if there be dearth in the land, if there be pestilence, if there be blasting or mildew, locusts or caterpillars, if their enemies besiege them in the cities of their land, whatsoever sore or whatsoever sickness there be, then what prayer or what supplication soever shall be made of any man or of all thy people Israel, when every one shall know his own sore and his own grief, and shall spread forth his hands in this house. Then hear thou from heaven thy dwelling place, and forgive, and render unto every man according unto all his ways, whose heart thou knowest, for thou only knowest the hearts of the children of men. These verses here make it clear that in this dispensation at this time, Solomon had just built the temple, and God says he would accept their prayers, that God dwelt in heaven, but yet he would dwell among his people in the temple. And if they were in unbelief and as a result received pestilence, blasting, mildew, locusts, caterpillars, then if they prayed to God from the temple or toward the temple, then God would hear them and forgive them. It's a complete different dispensation. So I just mention all this to say that people like to take 2 Chronicles 7:14 out of context to meet their political agenda, when really this applies to Israel. It was a different program, and it had to do with God only dwelling in heaven and then also in the temple once a year. God dwells within us today when we are saved. It's a completely different situation. Okay, the question and answer. Question last time, which was a while back since we've done this. The question was, Satan provoked David. What did Satan do to provoke Israel? What did Satan get David to do to provoke Israel? The answer is in 1 Chronicles 21. First Chronicles 21, verse 1. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. God had said that Israel would be innumerable. They would be as the sand of the sea. So, numerable, you couldn't number them. And Satan got David, provoked David to number Israel. In other words, by numbering Israel, it meant they weren't trusting in God's promise. And God punished Israel pretty sorely for doing this. But, you know, a lot of times you don't really get a glimpse too much into what goes on in the spirit realm. When this event is mentioned also, this is a parallel passage to 2 Samuel 24. In 2 Samuel 24, verse 1, it says, again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, go number Israel and Judah. It's interesting that First Chronicles says that Satan stood up against Israel. See, you get that spiritual perspective of what's going on there. All right, the question for this time, I mentioned about the temple that was made. So Solomon builds the temple, he prays, he dedicates it. The question is, how did God show he accepted Solomon's building of the temple? What did God do to show that he accepted that temple as the place where he would dwell? And give me the chapter and verse. It's in 2 Chronicles, so find it in 2 Chronicles. Give me the chapter and verse which says how God showed he accepted Solomon's building of the temple. All right, thanks for watching.